Welcome to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This week's episode is brought to you by Imaging Services, Chiro Moguls, Mahalo Wellness, Chiro Health USA, The Goodman Factor, Chiropractic Rocks, Chiro Tax Pro, and Digital Hustle. Let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 219 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I am your co-host, Luke Millette. Here is your host, Jim Chester.
So today we have the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Krysti Wick, and if you want to know more about illumination in the chiropractic profession, stay tuned. So we have Krysti Wick coming in today from Wisconsin. This is episode 219 of the Chiro Hustle podcast, and Luke and I are joining you guys today from Grand Junction, Colorado. And we're so excited to have you with us today, Dr. Krysti.
Well, thanks for the invite. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I feel kind of it's like the old time shows, like when people felt like they arrived. They were on like Letterman or they were on Johnny Carson. Well, we have hustle.
That's awesome.
It is a big thing for us because sharing the story of chiropractic, a lot of people still need to be updated on what chiropractic really is and how it has a profound impact on the community, how it has a profound impact on the individual. I know we're going to go down some of these paths with you today and have that conversation. But before we go into that type of discussion later on in the interview, tell us a little bit about you and what your chiropractic story is and what got you into this beautiful profession.
Sure. So in the interest of keeping it in a nutshell version, I fell out of a haymow when I was 12, which most non-Midwestern people are like, what's a haymow? It's the top floor of a barn. I fell out of a barn, second story, when I was 12, and I suffered a compression fracture in my lumbar spine. And I had all kinds of issues with my recovery. And I've always been a really particular student. And one of the parts of my recovery was, of course, I was on all kinds of meds, and those meds just didn't allow me to function well at school. And so eventually my parents were like, we should probably take you to the chiropractor. And within a few weeks, I was so much better. And not only obviously was my pain improved, but my mood and my outlook and everything was completely different. And I had always loved science and wanted to actually be a pediatrician. But at the age of 12, I was like, this female chiropractor is pretty great. Like she, has the science down. She's an amazing doctor. She gets to have her own business and make her own hours. So the rest was history. Pretty much at age 12, 13-ish, I knew that I was going to be a chiropractor. So here I am today.
That's so cool. And a haymow. So did you grow up on a farm then?
I did not. I grew up riding horses, and we boarded our horses at a stable. And so I was helping to bale hay and lost my footing, and away I went.
Well, we're really, I guess in a roundabout way, thrilled of the haymow fall, because now you're doing great things. And I know one of the things that makes you unique in the space we were discussing off camera a little bit is this illuminated group that you started. Would you mind just sharing a little bit about that with us?
Sure, absolutely. So I started a chiropractic coaching company in the spring of 2019, mainly just around the premise that I was seeing a lot of females in chiropractic slip through the cracks and really just need a specific type of mentorship and development for females in our profession. And so I felt super called to just fill that need. And so I started a group coaching program, and I have 50 amazing women that, love to support each other and just grow together with the concept of how do we grow in an aligned fashion with our personal core values as well as our professional core values, and not sacrifice our quality of life in the process of building our practices. And so it's been a wild ride. It's been a great, year and a half. But it's really showing me that the need absolutely needed to be filled. And as women, we just have a little bit of a unique approach to how we run our practices. So, yeah.
That's a really powerful movement that you've created with 50 amazing people that are connected to you that you're helping. Just, I guess one of the questions is, how does it feel to like be such an influence on other people's futures and success and help them be able to find that within themselves where they, it's a big confusing world out there.
Right. That is such a question. My first reaction is I actually am a severe introvert. So if I could make an impact and not have to like poke my head up, I would love that because it absolutely can feel out of my comfort zone on a regular basis. But from the big picture, the amazing results and the messages and really the permission that is given within my program with my clients, that makes it so worth it. So it's an honor that I take very seriously. And it's something that I am consistently looking at how we can continue to perpetuate the message via all of us and create an amazing ripple effect for women in our profession for years to come. I really look at it as it's our job to pave the way for the next generation of females in this profession. So,
can you tell us some of your mantras that you live by and maybe some of your favorite motivational quotes?
Sure, absolutely. My favorite quote, hands down, is the Maya Angelou quote, that people will forget what you did and what you said, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And I really think as a chiropractor, that's something that I live by. As a coach, that's something that I live by. Just creating a wow relationship and experience for people, I think is such a gift to this world that we all are desperately craving that connection right now. I mean, in a world that feels more disconnected than ever, I would argue. I think it's so awesome to be able to wake up every day and know that like you can make a difference for one person, two people, and those one or two people can then go and make a difference for other people. And I take that very seriously. So that's something I think about all the time. In fact, I almost painted the quote on the back of my office. And instead I settled for one big word that just said inspire, which I think kind of encapsulates the same thing. So every day I walk into my practice through my back door, I have a giant mural that says inspire. Because I just think it's so important for you to remember that your voice matters. It matters so much. So that's a big one. And then there's also an Abraham Lincoln quote that talks about, the best way to predict your future is to create it. And so I feel like I kind of live this great line of listening to my intuition and not like hustling my face off because I'm sick of burning out, but also being honest about the fact that if I want something to happen, I have the capacity to make it happen. And I need to plan in order for that to happen. And I need to educate myself and I need to surround myself with fantastic people. So that's really another big piece of how I live my life, is just making sure that I feel empowered to make the choices that I know are going to make a difference aligned with my core values.
So backing up a little bit, I know you have an impact on your tribe and your group that you help. Is there a message that you would share with them if they're watching this, or that they'll watch this later, that you would want them to hear?
Just with my immediate group, I feel like they know all my messages, but to reinforce just their actions every day absolutely do have a ripple effect. And I think it's so important. Like the biggest message for me is I firmly believe that females are a huge part of the future of this profession. We lose far too many women in practice between those first few years where they graduate from school. The statistics aren't clear, but there's a large percentage of women that aren't in practice at 5 to 7 years out after they graduate from school. And so I think it's our job to help other women succeed in practice because we bring such a unique perspective to this profession. And this profession needs every one of us. I mean, every single person is important. And if we can continue to help other women figure out their personal journey in chiropractic, I think that's an awesome legacy for us to leave.
So you mentioned there that there's some type of stat that surrounds women chiropractors not practicing after 5 to 7 years, but do you know, without any type of like numbers, like what causes most women to step away from being in a practice? Is it birth? Is it children? Is it injury? Is it debt? Like, do you know like what it is that's causing most of these women to like step away from being in chiropractic offices?
Good question. I wish I had like a survey that I could quote on that, but I would venture to guess it's probably all of those things, Jim. Like, I mean, all of those things could play a factor. What I have seen personally in my coaching journey, I've been a coach for over 4 years in this profession. And what I have seen is there's a lot of chiropractic couples in this profession. And sometimes what happens is if they're practicing together, it becomes a natural progression that someone has to take care of home and kids, or also office administrative type things. And what I have seen is it has been more common that the male chiropractor chooses to continue with patient care, and then the female chiropractor takes on all those other things. Now, again, I don't have any survey or like stat to back that up. That's just been my personal experience with seeing a lot of that. And so I think that that is a big part of where we're losing some actively practicing women, just because they have a lot of other hats that they have to wear and a lot of other things that they have to accommodate. And so I think it can be detrimental to their trajectory in the profession.
How do you think the world would change if every person started getting adjusted regularly?
Well, especially right now, I think it would be a lot happier. I definitely now more than ever, there's at least a couple times a week where I'm like, that person's just so grumpy and so judgmental. And I really wish that they were better connected, that their brain and body were better connected, and that their sympathetics weren't in such crazy overdrive. So really, like, I think that's the number one thing. I think it would be so much easier for us all to create connection and support each other if we were all, if the world was adjusted. I think that's such a huge need right now. So that's a big one. And then obviously another thing would just be people would realize that there's so many natural options for them to exhaust before they jump to something that's going to be super detrimental in the long run. I think as chiropractors, we are such a portal of entry for that paradigm shift. And if, more people were getting adjusted, we're just awakening that thought process in them. And, as a whole, obviously the health of our humanity would be wildly different.
You said that when people aren't getting adjusted, their attitudinal shift is on the far end of the spectrum. And I just wanted to touch on that a little bit based on the physiological shift. When you're actually doing like a motion palpation on somebody and you like press on like, say, T11 and they're like, they're like, I didn't know that hurt. But it shows up differently because there was something going on that they were unaware of. And I think the reality of people's attitudes is just like that. Like they show up and they're like, and you're like, yeah, they're like, something stuck there. And it's not just.
I completely agree with that. I think the vast majority of humans that we can easily see that they are not responding appropriately to life, they can't see that. I totally agree with you, Jim. I think that they are like coming to their life and they just don't know any better. Like they just think this is how they're supposed to behave and it feels normal to them. But just because it's common doesn't mean it's normal. And we're the only people that really understand that. And I think that's why this year has been so maddening for us, right? I mean, on so many levels, but I think it's so important for us to try to lovingly point that out. And that's something that we talk about in our practice all the time. We tell patients in our practice, as you continue to get adjusted, you will see that things that were throwing you off from a stress perspective, like, are so small. Like, you're going to have so much longer of a fuse to manage normal everyday things, and you should. So
I do think that the stressors right now that people are have access to are a lot different than the stressors that, 5 years ago stressors and 10 years ago stressors and 20 years ago stressors. So the amount of influx of how people have to like catch up with it. I had a conversation with somebody yesterday about like people getting in fitness and losing weight. And sometimes when people have such a rapid weight loss, their mind doesn't catch up with the way their body's changed. And I really think that that's the way that's going on right now with people with stressors, is their mind can't catch up to the amount that's thrown at them so consistently, and they just don't know how to respond to it. And I do think that when people do have a great care provider like a chiropractor, they can actually have a bond with somebody that's more interested in than just their symptomatology. And that's really what chiropractic means to me, is when people say no pain, no problem. Yeah, you never know what's going on beneath the iceberg, So that's why it's important for people to get checked and adjusted regularly, because it can shift humanity. And that's really why we ask that question, is because so many times we get to the point with this conversation of chiropractic and we're like, yeah, let's have BJ Palmer's Utopia. But BJ Palmer's Utopia was back in like the 1930s. So now we have a huge shift forward where we're in like 2021 almost, and we have a whole different amount of, concern going for people. And that's why they need to be seen consistently and regularly and build a relationship with the chiropractor. So I thank you for saying some of those things, because most people just don't know how much stress is upon us right now and why it's important to have a connected nervous system.
Agreed. 100%. I was just talking to my husband not that long ago about how he was like, the internet ruined the world. And I was like, but it also gave us, so like, we wouldn't be talking right now if it wasn't for the internet. So yeah, I think everything has crept up on people, and it's normal for them now. So it's so difficult for them to critically think, because it has just, year by year, we've gotten more and more exposed to something, and we have continued to accept it as normal. And that's why this year it is so imperative that we don't accept these changes as our new normal. Like, we cannot just sit back and resign ourselves to allowing this to continue to happen, because, like, we need to adjust our expectations of the change that we can create in order to actually band together and create such change.
So where do you see the chiropractic profession going in the next 20 years or so?
Such a good question. I would hope that we could learn to be more like respectful of how each other are practicing. Like, I firmly believe for however many thousands of chiropractors there are in the US, and let's add in every other country, that's how many different types of practices there should be. I mean, we're all uniquely human. We all have very specific things that we bring to the table. And so I would love to see us get back to, what the profession was founded on, which was, loving each other and making sure that we are supportive, because again, it's going to take all of us to actually get to a tipping point where, I always talk to my clients about the difference between dentistry and chiropractic, right? Like, everyone knows you need to go to the dentist, and we need to get to a point as a profession in the next 20 years where everyone knows that you need to be seen regularly by a chiropractor. And I think the only way that that's going to happen is if we start collaborating more and respecting our differences, and being willing to lay down the swords and band together in the name of actually helping the general public see what's possible with their lives through a lens of true care and understanding. Like, we can't shame the general public into change. Like, that's not how it works. And if we continue to shame each other, how the heck are we going to not shame the public, right? So I certainly hope in the next 20 years, we can just figure out a higher level of collaboration so that we can see a higher level of results with each of our communities.
You made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This week's episode is brought to you by Imaging Services, Chiro Moguls, Mahalo Wellness, Chiro Health USA, The Goodman Factor, Chiropractic Rocks, Chiro Tax Pro, and Digital Hustle. Let's hustle.
That's profound. I've when your coaching members are going to listen to this, when your practice members are going to listen to this, when your husband listens to this, when everybody gets a chance to hear what you just mentioned, it's going to hopefully impact some people to where they're like, you know what? I should check in with somebody in the chiropractic profession and become friends with them. I should support somebody in their mission and see if there's anything I can share with them. And I do think that it is a band of strength that makes the whole profession become that know, like, and trust. And it's not you can't overeducate people right now. Like, people just need to understand that chiropractic is it's preventative. And I talked to John DeMartini a couple of years ago, and he goes, Jim, what you have to understand is with chiropractic that people that utilize the services, they're actually saving themselves money, and it's an investment. And when people understand that going to chiropractic regularly is an investment, that's when it shifts. If it's wait till something's wrong to repair it, that's when chiropractic doesn't advance. He goes, but when we get to the point where people understand that chiropractic for a lifetime is an investment and not an expense, that's when we're going to move away from the paradigm that we think that health insurance is supportive of the profession. And that's when people understand that self-accountability supports themselves long-term and makes them healthy and saves them money and makes them more money because they're more vibrant and they don't have that bad attitude and they don't feel crummy. So, when I talked to DeMartini, he dropped like this huge knowledge bomb on me. And I was like, oh, wow. So it is an investment in your lifestyle that will give you longevity. And in chiropractic, Dr. Krysti, they always say, chiropractic gives you life to your years and years to your life. Yeah, it's so darn true. And, those are little truisms that chiropractic is very quippy with its quotes and its mantras and things. And I think that when people do realize that if they invest in themselves, there's no greater investment than in self. And why wait till we get to the point where I guess Sean Dill told me this, why wait to the point where the engine light comes on to go get your, to change your oil? You should have it scheduled and just do it.
Mm-hmm. So true. So true. Hopefully 20 years from now, everyone will have a little Jim Chester voice in their head that tells them all of those things.
Well, I'm not going anywhere.
So who are some of your heroes? Who inspires you? Who do you look up to? And if you could pick anyone in history to have lunch with, who would it be?
Yeah, I love that anyone in history. I would really love to have lunch with Mabel Palmer. I am so fascinated. I wish there was more knowledge I could more history specific to her life. I'm just so intrigued by what it must have been like at that time. And definitely, there were other female chiropractors at that time, and I just would be really interested to hear their perspective. So those are some of my heroes. And I definitely, I'm not like a chiro philosophy buff or anything of the sort, but I've had a couple mentors in chiropractic that are, and that also really, intrigued me I would love to sit down with some of the people that went to jail for chiropractic, back in that time to just be in their presence of that much certainty of, being willing to sacrifice your own family life for whatever period of time because you had that much certainty about what we provide. I would just love to, pick their brain and, be in the presence of that level of understanding and commitment. So those are some chiropractic things. And then, real life, like I'm a business nerd. So I'd love to like chat with Sarah Blakely or, Oprah or I don't know, any other of the, giant female tycoons that we all know and love, just to, again, hear some perspective and some inspiration.
I love the idea that you future pace the acknowledgement for where you're going. And I really think that you staying on your course, you're going to be able to have the same impact, and you're going to be able to touch so many people's lives with the work that you're accomplishing right now. And, just for me to acknowledge you for what you're accomplishing with your group and your answers and the way that you show up, I think that there's going to be young chiropractors in the future that will say, I want to be like her. And I think that that's a real honorable position to stand into. And to talk a little bit about Mabel Palmer, I think a guy named Todd Waters, who's a chiropractic historian, just published a book on Mabel Palmer. So you might want to check that out as well. And I think it would be really cool for, to turn back the history and to find out what the challenges were at like that generation for being in private practice and how they're viewed amongst their colleagues and how they, I know a lot of people probably don't know this, but Mabel was like the teacher. She was teaching people like A&P, like when people were like learning like about like anatomy, she was teaching that stuff. So the early generation of chiropractors were educated by Mabel as like what's going on with the body. And that's how they learned how to like understand, like, to diagnose and to take care of people is because of her teaching. So I think it would be awesome to go back in time and to be able to have that type of conversation. And I made a post last night about, would BJ and I be friends? Would BJ like to go walk on the Mississippi River with me and talk about life? Because I support his message so hardcore, like 2020 style. But like, I just think that it would be fascinating to go back and to see if like, since I lived in Davenport, Iowa, if I could just like go like, hey, bro, let's go grab a meal. So I resonate with your answers.
Yeah. And thank you for your kind words. I very much appreciate that. And I think anytime you're aligned with your passion, the sky's the limit. And I definitely feel very aligned with what I was put on this planet to do. So thank you for recognizing that. I appreciate it.
It's one of my superpowers, acknowledgement.
So can you tell us about some marketing that maybe you've tried in the past that did not work and what you learned from it?
Sure. This is an interesting question because I don't think to call marketing a mistake, like every mistake I've made in practice has led me to where I am today. So I really don't, I'm totally the type of person that you could tell me all day long, but until I try it myself, I might not listen. So I think any marketing that I have done that didn't give me a great result allowed me to learn about my demographic, my community. That's something really important for any chiropractors listening. Like every town is different and every little pocket of society has their own quirks and niche way of marketing to them. So I don't think I've had any like massive failures, but I will say from a general consensus, anytime I tried to just do something because it's what everyone was doing in chiropractic, those were the times that I ended up looking back and being like, but what would I have, if I would have just listened to myself and my gut, what would I have done differently in those situations? And how would I have respected my own energy and my own approach even more? So that would be the biggest thing in marketing, I would say, that I would have changed, is just listening to myself a bit more to allow myself to really be congruent with what I know is best for my practice. So
I guess let's clear up like the wide spectrum and kind of talk to like the wrench turning. Like, what do you like actually have your coaching clients do to turn the wrench to make things work for marketing like today?
I love that. The first thing we have to cover is like, how do they prefer to deliver information? So I personally believe that everyone is wired more with like, if you like to speak, great. If you like to write, awesome. So I think first and foremost, you have to figure out, what do you actually enjoy doing when it comes to educating and creating content? And then how do you translate that into practice and consistently deliver? So if you are genuinely a writer and you enjoy writing, how are you going to make sure that you're showing up on your social captions and you're doing little mini educational pieces to help take that prospect across the bridge and start to, plant seeds that will eventually pay off? Or how do you write great blog posts that are really speaking to where a prospect currently is? And then you're running Facebook ads to that piece of content to, again, help them across the bridge to know that chiropractic is for you. So really, content marketing in my mind is something that if you have to be doing content marketing at this point in 2020. So I work with them a lot on just figuring out how they're going to be consistent with that and how it's not going to be overwhelming. I have some people that love getting on video, like knocking out a 5-minute video about something educational for either current patients or prospects is easy for them. So then how do they make that a routine? So that's a big one. Obviously, there's tons of social advertising that you can take advantage of nowadays. We currently have great success in my practice with Google ads, Facebook ads, Instagram ads. And again, the success there is very reliant on the copywriting. It's very reliant on your branding and how aligned that messaging in those ads is with your big picture. So, a great example of that is if you have a practice like mine, which is, family wellness, if I started running a bunch of sciatica ads, I might be successful in generating new patients with sciatica, but I would want to jump out of my second floor story window because I don't love seeing patients with sciatica. So I think it's super important for you to critically think about any content that you are putting out there, especially if you're putting money behind it, to make sure that you are pulling in those ideal patients that you see yourself having a great relationship with 10 years from now, 20 years from now, whatever that may be. So content marketing and paid social are really two of the biggest things. Prior to that, I did a lot of teaching about events inside of my coaching program. Obviously, 2020 has led to a whole different world with events. But I know plenty of people in chiropractic who are having great success with doing virtual events right now. And that's definitely something else that you could explore. And some of my clients are getting good success with, little mini webinars or educational series that are being delivered via an email sequence. Lots of opportunities there too. So there's some tactical examples.
I think my biggest takeaway from what you said is know your avatar and know who you want to be showing up to your practice 5 days a week. Mm-hmm. And you make an ad for people and it's going out there and it's effective and you're getting the wrong type of avatar. Now you're going to work and serving people that drain your energy and power out of you, but you're still delivering the goods, but it's just not what you want to show up to. It's like saying, yeah, I run a show and the next thing somebody's like, hey, you're going to have to go interview that type of person. I'm like, I don't do that. Like it's, you have to know who you like to talk to. And we like to talk to chiropractors. So we know that that's our zone of genius. So if you're a pediatric doc, yeah, you want to take care of moms and, babies and families. So I think that that's probably my biggest takeaway of what you said. There's know your avatar. And, I think also that you have to understand the difference. People that are watching this have to understand the difference between what I call old school marketing and new school marketing. And you touched on the new school marketing. And I just think that other people that might be interested in the future of like getting back into their community events, like you were mentioning, they should do more of a scheduling event rather than a chiropractic screening. And they should go out there and meet people where they are and offer to them to come in. And then they should also get into their chamber BNI groups like that. And they should go out there and become like a public figure within their community to where people know that that's the person to go to for chiropractic. So I think that, based on what you said is, yeah, for sure, you have to know how to, be effective with social and plan out your posting and go into your strength. But I also think that people have to, if they want to be sustainable in business long term, they have to become a community figure as well. And going out and meeting people and smiling at people and waving at people, that just shows that you're in service and that you are available to people to come to. And, I've gone out and done screenings where I've scheduled one person, but that person's still under chiropractic care. So that's the thing that we also have to take in consideration. It's not always the amount of viewers that we get, it's the quality of the viewers that you get. So that's also the thing. It's not about like how many people, bought that like offer to come in from Facebook. No, how many people were the avatar that were high level value that stuck with this and weren't a pain in my, long term. So I think all that stuff is like very fair to talk about for, the marketing, what didn't go right, what can go right, and where we are today. So I just love these type of conversations because, when you have access to your group and you're helping them, these things matter to them and you want to see them become successful. So you want to make sure that you work with your avatar the exact right way so they can have predictable success.
Well said. Couldn't agree more.
So what's some advice that you would give to maybe a chiropractic student out there who's struggling? And do you think they should pick their schools based on geography?
Definitely don't pick your school based on geography. I don't think there's many, if you truly want to understand chiropractic philosophy, there's not very many choices left when it comes to schools, but I think that's so important. In fact, that's something I would have probably changed. So if I could go back and give my own self advice at, the age of 18, I would have definitely chosen a different school. As far as a student that is struggling, student struggles are something that I chat with students on actually a pretty regular basis. And the struggles that occur in school are typically around frustration of the hoops that have to be jumped through in order to just get that piece of paper. Obviously, I tend to talk to students that are philosophically aligned, and that's why they're drawn to, a type of practice and a type of educator like I am. And honestly, I think the biggest piece of advice is just know that there are some things that you just have to be willing to accept. And there are hoops that you just have to jump through, but also you can still, be that foundation for change and you can still make a difference. I just saw a petition going around. I can't remember what school it was for, but it was going around based on quarantine restrictions and whatnot for a school. And, there's students that are banding together that are making their voices heard. So I think the biggest piece of advice is just be willing to fight the battles that matter. And also just remember that you could be frustrated all you want, that you have to jump through these hoops in order to get that piece of paper. But we all had to do that and we're all thriving on the other side. And in the grand scheme of things, it's, it's a short time frame to just check those boxes and then be able to go change lives. So.
Super valuable. I think people that go to chiropractic school, from my take, is a lot of the people that have had any type of challenges other than what you mentioned are usually, family related or relationship related. And that's a real big struggle for most people as they're going through that life, because when most people jump into a chiropractic degree, they're at that age where they have young kids. And they're at that age where if they don't, they go to chiropractic school and they find themselves a partner. So those are the kind of things that I've seen happening in the chiropractic spaces. They either have young kids when they go into school, so they have to balance a home life, and they're not just the 4-year college students that show up and live in a dorm or buy student housing. No, they're actually a family that goes to chiropractic college and they have real style life with bills to pay and things like that. And it's not just ooh, where's the party this weekend? And is there type thing? It's no, we have to get the kids to school and I have 100 hours of studying this week.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think what you're saying. I'm really enjoying this interview with you today because we get a chance to really have some healthy banter about some of the real things that are happening in the profession, from marketing to struggles to the future to your personal story. And I think that as we kind of marry this message together, people are going to come in out of this episode with some real takeaways, and the students are going to learn. The people who have been practicing for 30 years are going to learn. And people are probably going to be attracted to your message and want to work with you.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. And you get what you get. So like, I'm all about transparency. And I think if we're not willing to talk about what's actually happening and what's real right now, then, what's the point? So yeah, I appreciate it.
And we also want to get to know you personally a little bit more. What kind of things do you like to read or listen to? What do you do for fun? What are your hobbies?
Yeah, the fun hobby thing is a little tricky because I'm an achiever, so I definitely work for fun. So I don't have a ton of hobbies. My one hobby that I'm very consistent about is design. I just really love interior design. I always pretty much have a project going. We've had lots of houses, and I just renovated a really large building for my practice that was super both stressful but super enjoyable for me as a hobby. So interior design. And then what do I read? I am a total business nerd. I pretty much am always reading business and self-development books. I just love that side of things. And as a CEO of a practice and of a consulting company, I just think I'm always challenging myself to grow. So I tend to read mostly business things. I don't read a ton of like fiction.
Are there any other podcasts that you subscribe to?
Yeah, I definitely, in the chiropractic world, I love, the She Slays the Day podcast. I think she's bringing so much value. She's a really dear friend of mine. And as far as for me personally with business, I listen a lot to Amy Porterfield's podcast. I listen to Jenna Kutcher's podcast. I listen to James Wedmore, Mind Your Business. That would be a really good one for anyone that feels like they need to just tackle some mindset things with their business. Those are the three that I keep on pretty solid rotation in my life. So,
what are some web resources you could give people if they want to learn more about you, or if they want to join the coaching group? Where can they go?
Yeah, absolutely. As far as like conversation, I hang out most on Instagram. So you definitely can, shoot me a DM on Instagram. It's at Dr. Krysti. And you'll see in the show notes, my first name is spelled all goofy. My mom gave me a great gift with that. And then online, as far as, just looking more into what I offer, you can head to theilluminatedsquad.com.
And I wink, wink, didn't have any trouble spelling your name.
Autocorrect didn't get you there. I don't know.
Well, this episode's been a real learning experience for both of us, I'm sure. And it's been just great to get to know you. And I just want to offer us as a resource, if we can ever help you with anything to support you in your group. We'd love to be of access and a resource for you as well.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And the feeling is mutual. Thanks for what both of you do for this profession. I think it's so awesome when someone that isn't it, right? Like you guys made it your mission and you're not chiropractors, which I think is the bomb diggity. So thanks. That's awesome.
Thank you for being our guest today. And we hope that you enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thanks so much.
And you're coming into the weekend, so enjoy that as well.
You too.
All right. Talk to you soon.
See you next time.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.